What do people even mean when they talk about forgiving and letting go? My therapist explained it as forgiving myself. I kept fixating on how things could have been different. He said to forgive myself and realize things never could have been different. The situation was destined to become what it was. I needed to forgive myself for thinking I could have changed it. I didn't owe forgiveness to the other person. I could heal and move on without ever giving them forgiveness. And I did. It just became something that happened that no longer affected me. People that tell you, you must forgive, aren't being very respectful of your feelings and experiences. They are just spouting useless platitudes without taking any time to actually consider the situation. It just sounds like asshole words from people that don't want to deal with being inconvenienced by others' emotions. Forgive yourself. Forgive any mistakes you think you might have made, of any blame you think you might hold for the situation you were in. Because you are not to blame. And you didn't make mistakes. It wasn't your fault. There may, or may not, be things you can do differently in the future. But you did nothing wrong and were not responsible for the abuse. Let go of any lingering self-blame. Let go of any feelings that you are still there, still stuck in that situation, that it is still dragging you down. You will be able to live a happy and full life. Despite what was done to you in the past, it was a terrible thing that happened. And you would be right to be angry. You didn't deserve it, and it was unfair. You are allowed to be angry. But you are also allowed to let yourself to let go. You are allowed to feel anything that you want or need to. Both from this situation and going onwards. You can be free. You deserve to be free. Been in a few abusive relationships. Chances are you never will forget. But that's okay. To me it's just accepting it's in the past, nothing can be done to fix it anymore. And my future doesn't have to be that way. Which is very exciting. I've learned lessons. What to watch out for. What to look for. Work sucks, but it's nothing compared to suffering back then. Since you've gotten far, maybe you've become a little wiser. And stronger too. Yeah, I've been in your shoes. Two phrases puzzled me for a long time. Feel your feelings, forgive for yourself. I can try and explain them. But maybe it is something that can't really be explained and has to be felt. You might think you are feeling your feelings. Anger. Betrayal. But there is a lot more there. Some are too deep and painful that you don't really feel them. I can't explain it beyond that. Now I feel my feelings and it's over and done in almost any situation. I can feel and remain calm. It's weird in a way because as a guy, stoic is often thought of as being unemotional, cold. Maybe just my view, but now I see stoic guys as the best feelers. They are able to feel their emotions and still make calm, rational decisions. Forgive for yourself. Again. I've been in your shoes. I thought I had let go. But that was still half the journey. Inside, I was still carrying anger and hatred for myself for being so blind. Years of therapy and now it's in context. I'll never forget that person's actions and they will never be trusted or close again. That's the never forget part. But I don't feel anger at them or myself. It's a sort of, you roll how you roll and I know. And that's that. Lesson learned. There's one of those Instagram vids that really resonates with me. Trust people to be who they are. But trust that you see them properly. Something like that. It's like I see a snake when I see them. I don't get angry at them. They are just a snake. But I don't deal with them. I don't know if that means I've forgiven them by other people's standards. But it feels good for me and my light is not changed by their darkness. If you're fresh out of an abusive relationship, then anger is your best friend. It is your body's way of reaching cathartic release. And it's an effective way of purging yourself from the feelings against and distancing yourself from the abuser. Anger is a necessary emotion to go through. But after a while, if that anger lingers on, It starts to fester in the heart, and the person gets stuck in these bouts of anger at random moments. And it is always impotent anger, violent fantasies, or replaying real moments. But with the "how I could have solved it" angle, etc., imagine situations that lead nowhere and solve nothing, but stir up negative emotions. That is the situation where one is wise to work on just letting go and forgiving the person in their hearts. Because their own inner peace is the most precious thing. And if they don't, they are only harming themselves. Before I give my 2 cents, I must mention I am not in the least qualified in therapy, and have almost no education to legitimately back up anything I will say. But you seem to be at a point where you've gone through the anger, got it out of the way, and have already half forgotten about the asshole. But now what remain are the triggers. So with some distance between you and the trauma, perhaps you should aim at deep work with those traumas, working through them, finding your agency and reclaiming your own emotions. To put it in today's terms, forgiving allows you to not have that person living rent-free in your head. In this circumstance, it's not about you forgiving the person so that they feel better or because you have a moral obligation to forgive. It's about you moving on from the hurt that person caused you in a genuine way. When you think about what happened to you and you get angry and upset from reliving the memories, or even if you get savage pleasure from imagining getting some type of revenge on the person who harmed you, you're mentally hurting yourself. That person continues to have power over you. If you find yourself doing this a lot, you really have not moved on from the trauma or the person who caused it, even if you are no longer physically around that person. Again, you're not forgiving for them. You're doing it for yourself so you can move on to better things. You forgive yourself for putting up with that person, and you let go of that person so they no longer rent any space in your head or life. You don't have to forgive the abuse or the abuser, but you want to get to a point, like you are, where you no longer even think of them, that they hold no power over you or in you. It's taken me several years of therapy to peel back the layers that made my mother who she was and why she didn't have the same choices I have today. Now, years after her death, I have been able to work through my anger at her, forgive her, and when I remember and speak about her, my blood pressure doesn't go up and I can think fondly of the good times. I doubt that I ever could gotten to this place without the guided wisdom of my therapist. And we still have a long road ahead of us before I can ever forgive or move on as far as my father is concerned. But it took work on my part. It's not easy. And you may find that you think you've forgiven once or twice before you really, truly have. But it is possible. It just doesn't happen like a bolt of lightning out of nowhere. You have to work through all the trauma and awful memories you've been left with. There's no other way over the mountain than going through it. But it is worth it. I see forgiving someone as deciding to not be angry at your offender anymore or let what happened control you. It's not the same as giving them a pass for what they did. You can forgive someone but also never speak to them again. You can forgive them but still testify against them in court if that ever comes up. Forgiveness is more about you than about them. I've thought about this. And if I ever saw my abuser again, all I would want to say is that I forgive him and literally nothing else. I wouldn't listen to anything he had to say either. Too many people confuse all these terms personally. Forgiveness and letting go are poor recommendations to someone that's been harmed. The goal is to get someone to stop suppressing something bad that happened. It happened. Pretending that it didn't happen leads to poor mental health. Therefore, therapists endeavor to find the right way for individuals to remember and acknowledge what happened, and become willing to move on. This keeps your mood and emotions in the present, and not anchored mysteriously in the past. The problem is that some trauma cannot be forgiven. Letting go feels like abandonment of accountability for the individual inflicting the trauma. If you're not willing to go down this path, it's suggested you won't get better. I believe this is because therapists ignore a reasonable alternative. The hostile acknowledgement that leads to FU ownership. Yes, when you were vulnerable, someone inflicted trauma. That, them. Yes, someone said, did something horrific that you were unable to prevent. That, them. This bad stuff happened, and regardless of what you wish you could have done. No one is perfect. No one has a time machine. And your only path you can influence is yourself and others in the future. If you can acknowledge the above, you can move into the FU ownership phase. This is the phase where you see how your past has created who you are today. Recognize that everyone, everywhere, has the opportunity to add value to the world. And part of that value comes from preventing that trauma from happening in the future to yourself or anyone else. I dare someone to try that today. Few if you think you'd get away with that now. Few if you think I'd let you do that to someone else. Few. I own this now. Not you. Once you reach that stage, your future is of your own making. You're not a victim passively letting go of the past or forgiving horrible people. You're a champion for other victims and actively becoming an advocate and ally to others. I like to share what my wife was told when she was younger and struggling in her own thoughts. She shared them with someone else and they said, "Damn, would you let someone else talk to you like that?" No, she wouldn't. And that changed how she perceived her future self. I get pissed 'cause it feels like I'm not entitled to get angry about what was done to me, and that feels unfair. Holding on to that anger, especially over long periods of time, can cause further suffering, which is the problem that forgive and forget is supposed to solve. You are entitled to be angry at someone because of the wrong they have done to you. But holding on to that anger doesn't benefit you in any way long after the event has passed. For some intense levels of trauma, truly forgetting is just not possible, ever. Moving on from these intense traumas is very much an exercise in purposeful forgetting. Basically, one must kinda pretend not to remember what hurts so much, and simply get through tomorrow. This is often easier said than done, and can vary day to day, which is part of the reason seriously traumatized individuals can seem to have an excessive number of bad days. Less of a generic bad day, and more like it's that they are struggling with forgetting the trauma and the pain it caused. Something I've learned in the last year is that you can move on without forgiving someone or getting closure. We have to learn to love ourselves, know we deserve better, and not give the other person that power over us. We are the only one in control of our emotions at the end of the day, and it'll never be easy. But one day you let it go with time. I don't think you have to forgive, but you can accept. I find that a lot of my anger comes from not accepting situations, constantly trying to make sense of it, think of how it should have been, etc. I can't believe that happened, I tolerated that, is at its core denial and not acceptance. Have you tried moving to that did happen and it was awful? I never have to see that person again, and I'm better for it. In this way, you let go, but you don't forgive necessarily. You have to accept it. Fact that it pisses you off shows that you still hold a grudge. But you can forgive yourself and the other person, and that way move on. By forgiving, you no longer have problems with it, and when it comes to mind, it's just a thought like any other. Hey, thanks for everybody's input. I think some people focused more on trying to provide me with useful advice, which I appreciate and know it comes from a good place, than to actually answer the question lol. But that's okay. I appreciate the kind words. I think I got to the conclusion that there isn't a single definition of forgiveness and letting go, and it will vary for people and situations. And there's no point on trying to use someone else's idea of it for my personal experience. I still think that anger and other negative emotions deserve their place on a healing process. So does learning how to deal with them healthily. And I am willing to die on this hill. Thanks again for everyone who took time to give their opinions. I think a better way to say it is forgiving yourself for allowing yourself to be in that situation. It's not your fault, but sometimes it feels like it is. Like, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I stand up for myself? I don't have to forgive that asshole, but I can forgive myself for putting myself in danger. When we forgive people, we aren't saying that whatever someone did was right, or that we are responsible for it, or that it is not supposed to hurt, or that they don't deserve to experience the consequences of their actions. Think of it as taking control of the only thing we actually have control of in the aftermath of being hurt or wronged, ourselves. No matter what, we cannot make our aggressors feel bad, regret what they did, apologize, be brought to justice, etc. While we are suffering. They may be living it up. There's a difference between excusing a wrong and forgiving a wrong. Forgiving is about saying that you are going to move past someone hurting you because you no longer want to be held back down by the pain they caused you. Doing this requires that you will try not to be worried about what happens to them going forward, because you can't control that, and fixating on it will only eat you up. You deserve to be happy and loved, but this can't happen if someone's abuse is holding your mind and feelings captive. It's not instant. It's a process. I don't really like the term letting go, because moving on is not that easy. It takes time. And you will come out of betrayal, trauma, abuse, injustice, etc. different than you were before. You'll never really forget. You will find new happiness and peace. But you'll always have your memories, but they will be powerless over you, and you will be free from your aggressor's filthy grasp. I love forgiveness, but it's one of those vegetables things. Forgiveness is good and important for us, but no one really likes to eat them until you develop a taste for them. It's not sweet or soft, but it's healthy. Let's be clear. Even after forgiveness, you do not need to involve yourself with the wrong party again. Or at the very least trust them, help them, etc. ever again. You may choose to keep being someone's friend after they leaked a secret you entrusted to them and they apologized for it, for example, but you don't need to tell them anything else in confidence. Boundaries, your time and trust are earned.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.